Hello to all the listeners of the ID5 podcast. Welcome to How to Thrive in the Cookieless Present. I'm Joanna Burton, the Chief Strategy Officer of ID5. For this ID5 podcast series, we're talking with a range of experts sharing their findings and case study results from real tests into the effectiveness of cookieless technologies. There's a lot of change in the digital advertising industry with the deprecation of traditional signals used for digital advertising to address audiences. There's changing privacy regulation. There's the influence of big tech players. Advertisers and publishers are already missing out on reaching valuable audiences who are using cookieless browsers like Safari and Firefox. Look, there's really a lot to cover on this topic. But with this podcast series, we're focusing on the real results. What's driving real results? We're looking at the identity strategies that companies around the world are deploying, what results they're seeing, and the learnings that can be applied from that. We hope this approach, this series, will be useful in helping you better understand the identity landscape, what works and what doesn't work, and be able to plan your future strategy as you navigate these changes. Today's identity pioneer is Olli Järvilehto, the Chief Operating Officer of Relevant Digital, which is another good partner for ID5. We've been working together for around 18 months. Welcome, Olli.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Lovely to see you.
Now, Olli, can you tell me a bit about your business? Tell me a bit about Relevant.
Yeah, so Relevant, we're a 10-year-old company out of the Nordics. We have our headquarters in Helsinki, but offices across Scandinavia. And our business has always been to help publishers get the most out of their digital assets with a focus on ad tech and programmatic mainly. And the data is obviously a crucial part of that. So we started off as a reselling company with reselling ad tech in the Nordics basically, but now for the past years we've been focusing a lot on our own software called Relevant Yield, which is basically it's a header bidding management solution combined with revenue analytics and real-time header bidding analytics. So that's something we focus a lot on, and we're growing globally, so we're expanding in Europe wildly and are making our first have been signing clients in the US and Northern America also now recently. And it's been, after the summer, we've been quite active on participating in industry events around, and it's been exciting to get to broaden our network on a global level.
Exciting times, global expansion. So that gives you a really good perspective on different approaches in the US and then in Europe and Scandinavia. So great to have you with us. And tell me a little bit, your COO, Olli, tell me a little bit about that role.
Yeah, so I oversee actually, so we have in the Nordics, we have a data exchange called Relevant Audience, where we operate, we have around 300 different websites where we premium publishers who we collect data from their websites and package it into audience segments and sell mainly via DSPs. So that's one of the business areas that I'm responsible for. And actually, I started at Relevant 5 years ago, so I was hired to build and develop that role, but my role has changed quite a bit during the years. I also oversee our programmatic business. So we do in Finland, we still operate a managed service programmatic operation. So oversee that part of our business as well, and spend most of my time on selling Relevant Yield and maintaining our customers in that sense. And actually, Relevant Audience, since it's a data exchange. We work together with Piano as our DMP technology in that area, and typically data has always been based on third-party cookies. And we've seen the issue that there are browsers that don't support cookies, third-party cookies today at all, and something needs to be done about that. And we've been quite sort of open to explore new alternatives and see what works, what doesn't work. And once we heard that there might be an opportunity to test this out, collaboration between Piano and ID5 and ourselves, we said immediately that yes, we want to be in the pilot phase here and test this out and get some real life learnings around it.
Great. So that's so this is why you're a pioneer. So you have some really interesting products. So it sounds like, you really know what you're talking about when it comes to audiences, and you're already working with a DMP. But tell me specifically, what steps have you taken? You've identified that there's cookieless browsers that you were missing out on. Was this last year, I think? And then what steps did you take from there?
Yeah, so we've been testing out a number of different identity solutions, first-party ID solutions, and since our core product today, Relevant Yield, it's a header bidding management tool. So any ID vendor that's part of pre-bid can be turned on through our tool right away. We heard a lot of good things about ID5 and said that, okay, yeah, these are a company who we should definitely bring into our testing phase as well. One of the big problems we did also identify in this is that, okay, broadcasting an ID from a publisher side, yeah, well, that's all dandy if you broadcast it, but if the DSP and the sort of the full chain up until the advertiser, if they're not able to interpret what that ID stands for, they can't transact based on that. And and in the Nordics where we have the data exchange running, we see that it's roughly a third of browsers that don't support cookies. So it is, from an advertiser point of view, they lose out on a big chunk of audience that they definitely would like to reach. And on the publisher side, the inventory it doesn't get monetized to the value that it actually has. So there are pros for all parties in the ecosystem to solve this issue.
Absolutely. And so you're saying that a third of the inventory was sort of unavailable for advertising with third-party cookies?
Yes. And then, then there's obviously from a publisher standpoint, you can obviously bundle data together with deals, which is it's a working solution, definitely good, but it is quite manual and it consumes a lot of labor to both on the operations side to maintain a massive amount of deals with inventory and targetings, and the amount of deals you need to do grows exponentially, and you need to have somebody who goes out and sells those. So having a scalable solution where you can actually decouple audience data from inventory, that is obviously a good solution if we can actually find something that works on a big scale.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Tell me about the process to implement.
Yeah. So we actually within the Piano DMP, we started serving ID5's script along with the DMP script, and obviously, since we come from Europe with GDPR regulations being quite tight, privacy is something that is paramount. And the fact that ID5 is a member of the TCF, and if you don't consent to ID5, there is no ID written in the browser. So that sort of brings a decent level of assurance here as well. So basically, essentially, the data collection in the DMP works exactly as previously, but there's an additional ID coupled to the user over there, which we can then use to send the segments over to DSPs and ad platforms then for utilization. And in the Nordics, Adform is over here. They have a big market share in the DSP realm here, and they've been quite open and flexible in operating with multiple different ID solutions, and yeah, they're open to do that. So it felt that okay, that this is a good place to test out this as well, and obviously it was a joint effort. So we obviously there was ID5, ourselves, Piano, Adform, everybody took part of this to get the technical set stuff working here. And there's always some minor wrinkles you need to iron out to get everything working, but it was actually quite a rapid turnaround in getting things going once we decided to start this.
What sort of wrinkles? Tell me about the wrinkles. How did you iron them out?
So yeah, it was basically how does the ID get sent over from the DMP to the DSP, and how is the IDs then, how are they decrypted there? Since actually the IDs are sent, they're encrypted as well, so you can't utilize them unless you have the key to decrypt them. So yeah, but sort of technical stuff. But when there's multiple stakeholders from different companies involved, it is all hands on deck, and takes some time to sort of find out, okay, that why doesn't it initially work? But yeah, it was a quick turnaround over there.
Yeah, so Adform has the decryption keys to be able to decrypt the ID5 ID, as does Piano, who's working for you as the DMP in this case.
Yeah, so, and we were fortunate enough also to our friends from Matterkind in Finland, who are a big programmatic buyer on the Finnish market, and they were more than willing to participate in testing this, and they actually obviously to get a comprehensive understanding of does it work or not, we wanted to get data from multiple different stakeholders as well. So understanding from an agency and advertiser point of view that, hey, does this improve results? Do we get better results in cookieless browsers than we do with third-party cookies? And yeah, and then we have from our tool then since we have real-time analytics, header bidding analytics available there, we did actually a split test in this sense that we stripped off the ID5 ID from a portion of the traffic. And so we got a real-time A/B testing going on and could actually compare like for like that, hey, what is the impact of having the ID present versus stripping it away? So we got a lot of useful data from all parties, and happy to say that it does work.
Great. Tell me about the results.
Yeah, so what we saw was from the advertiser side was quite interesting to see, because we with third-party cookies, if you target, and so the way the test was set up was that they had identical line items set up with third-party cookie targeting and with ID5's ID targeting. So we got comparison data like for like in that sense as well. And yeah, so when you do audience targeting with third-party cookie-based segments, Chrome is vastly overrepresented always in these, because it's the only browser that has virtually no restrictions on the usage of third-party cookies. So we would typically see 80 to 90% of impressions going to Chrome. And if Chrome share is a little over 60%, that's a vast overrepresentation. But what we saw in the line items using the ID5 ID was that it reflected a lot more the actual distribution of browsers in general. And the reach in Safari and Firefox increased by multiple X. So it's so we're not talking about double-digit percentage growth, but we talk about triple-digit percentage growth. So that's very promising, actually, these results.
So you were really able to get a lot of increased reach for the advertiser.
Yes, and then on a publisher, although we did it, this wasn't sort of full scale. That yes, everything's targeted with this. So it was a number of campaigns running over there, but we still could actually be able to identify that on the publisher side that the bidding CPMs had a substantial increase as well. So we saw an almost 10% increase in the bidding CPMs on the publisher level. So which is obviously promising. And once you scale that up, then to having it running full scale, we do believe that the figures will be improved quite a bit from that.
So 10% increase already.
Almost, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And yet you expect that to continue to grow.
Up to a certain point, yes. Obviously, then when you reach a saturation point, then yeah. But there is definitely there's a lot to gain. Some low-hanging fruit actually for publishers to gain by being able to monetize cookieless browsers more efficiently.
So, was there anything specific about the mix of publishers or about the specific brands that were involved in the test?
Well, the mix of publisher was, we work basically only with premium publishers, a range of different sort of, it was news sites and news sites mainly, but yeah, and on the advertiser side, so there was an FMCG representative, and then there was a B2B representative as well. So both from different angles as well. So.
So it's great to see, and that certainly reflects what we hear from other clients, that FMCGs are performing well, business-to-business brands are performing well. We hear medical brands as well performing well. And then what you're seeing is not only do the brands get this increased reach, so they benefit, but it's win-win because the publishers get an increase as well.
Exactly.
And then, so you've already said you expect this to increase. So it sounds to me like you're planning to scale this out, maybe more regions, more publishers. How are you going to apply these results? Yeah,
so now that we've proven that it works and it's justifiable to actually put in the additional investment then to get it to full scale. So yeah, we're actually in the process now of taking this across our data exchange network as far as possible, and talking to publishers that currently who are part of that have that, yes, hey, please, let's add ID5 now to the data collection and make sure that we get the infrastructure in place, and yeah, just then create a first party ID based offering based on the ID5 ID running in parallel with our existing product, basically.
Great. So, and in terms of the additional resources you need, that's basically more staff and more conversations, because the tech is there.
Yes. So where the tech is basically there, it's basically just having the dialogues with the publishers who are involved in our network that, hey, why should you be part of this? And yeah, convince them that that it's good for them, and then we have our team then working on doing a bit of manual work on our end to mirror the productization based on these first party IDs, and yeah, scaling it. But it's the work is ongoing already, and we hope to be at full scale within the next month. So
within the next month, this is going to be available globally or across EMEA?
So we have actually, the relevant audience, the data exchange network we have available is it's only in the Nordics and Baltics. So if you operate in these regions, then it will be available to you. But we don't have that business area on a global level.
But on a global level, you can add the ID in your header.
Yes, we do. So in our header bidding management solution, you can add the ID. It's plug and play, basically. It's super easy to implement, and we do recommend that, and obviously we recommend to enable it. But obviously there are regional differences as well. So what we see here and there's going to be, if you're in Northern American market, there's a bit more relaxed privacy rules over there. So there are other vendors as well than ID5. It's not going to be one ring to rule them all. There will be multiple, but I think the Prohaska Consulting does this ID landscape tracking, and I think we're up to something like 150 different ID vendors today. That's not going to happen. Then they're not going to survive. But there might be 2 to 10 sort of that will be, and they're a bit different in the way they operate. But it's good to also test and see which vendors work best for your operation and how do you operate in general. And for us, ID5 is definitely the front runner here.
Great. Oh, you really have developed the expertise in the different companies and how to deploy them and what works in the different regions. So how has it been when you've approached publishers and partners about getting involved in tests, deploying the technology in an always-on way? What sort of conversations are you having with publishers?
Surprisingly frictionless. I think everybody sees the need to do something about this, although Google keeps on kicking the can down the road. Yeah, I fear actually that a lot of companies will sort of take a back seat and stop preparing for the future, because it's not the future, it's now already. We see here that, okay, it's a third of the inventory that's unaddressable, but in some markets, you might be already that the majority of the inventory is unaddressable. And yeah, you should, if you haven't started the work on preparing for a cookieless future, do it now.
Great, that's great advice. So yeah, absolutely, you're right. So you're prepared, you're running tests, you've run tests, drawn conclusions, and you're implementing in markets where you already have a third of the inventory restricted to targeting, measurement in traditional methods. And now what you're talking about is other countries might be looking at more than half of the inventory is restricted, and yet sometimes there doesn't seem to be movement, there doesn't seem to be progress taken by other companies. So what do you think why do you think people are not moving forward in some regions?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there's a big regional difference in that. Based on the discussions I've had in multiple different countries, I think it's more on a company level. And yeah, obviously the big corporations, they have the resource and they probably, and then they have a way of actually relying fully on their own first-party data and have built products around that and are in quite a good position. But I do feel that in small to medium-sized companies, maybe it feels a bit like, okay, we don't know what to do, and because there's not one silver bullet to solve everything. It's a puzzle of multiple different things you need to take into account to make sure that you are prepared for the future. And yeah, if you have a large business and a possibility to collect a lot of first-party data, yeah, do that. If you're not doing it already, do it, because that won't be in vain. In whatever happens in the future, that won't be in vain. But yeah, then in a smaller scale, in the smaller companies or medium-sized companies, it's you do need to invest in people who have the right skill sets to make sure you are in a good position in the future, and you probably need to invest in some technologies as well. Yeah, I feel that maybe people feel that it is a bit daunting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it can be daunting. When did you start on this journey, Olli, with your Relevant? When did you start on this cookieless journey?
Well, we started thinking about it, I would say, probably 4 years ago or something like that. So, and yeah, and once Chrome came with the first announcement, I can't actually recall when they first announced it, but it must be 3 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, it was January 2020.
Okay, so not quite 3 years ago, but almost, yeah. So, at that point, basically we started to make contingency plans also. Okay, since our data exchange, which is was fully based on third-party cookies at that point. So was that okay? what will happen to it in the future? Are we able to come up with a solution to keep this business alive, or is it something that will just put an X on and start sort of scaling it down? But we felt that there is momentum on the market, that there will be some solutions, and it probably the business model and the way the data exchange works will probably be a bit different than what it was in the past. But we were optimistic about it, and decided, okay, that we just need to be active in the industry. Whenever something new comes up, we need to be the ones who are testing out stuff and be open-minded about everything, and be willing to also invest a bit of manpower on our end to test things that might not necessarily work.
Do you feel you're able to be more agile because you're a smaller company?
Yes, definitely. We are, and we're owned by the management as well. So if we take a decision, we can start doing it today already, basically. So, and we're fortunate to have a very, very skilled team as well. So we can actually we can do. We don't need to spend massive amounts of man hours to do something sort of small scale test and like a minimum viable product type of iteration. And so yeah, we're fortunate. We're in a fortunate place.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been thinking about this for 4 years. We've been working together for about 18 months. You've developed products, brought in other partners, done all the testing. You feel that some companies are daunted by it. It definitely seems like you've learned a lot. You have specialist skills. So to conclude, what would be your advice for other companies listening today that maybe they feel daunted by this?
Yeah, don't be daunted. It's and start if you're not testing already and understanding what works best for you, do it sort of yesterday, preferably. But then and as mentioned, it is going to be a mix of different tactics you need to deploy, and contextually, so as is a big topic, it will play a big role, and there in the future, if you have the possibility to have a scalable first-party data set, definitely something that will be of value in the future. But yeah, test out stuff and measure the test also. Make sure that you have actually a sort of solid A/B testing methodologies in place, so that you actually see that, hey, what is the impact of this? Does it actually improve my results in the scenario? And if something doesn't work, then you move on to the next one, and eventually you will find something that will work.
Great. I think that's great advice. Lots in there, but essentially don't be daunted. Do something yesterday and don't be daunted. Great. Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. It's been really great to be joined on this podcast by you, Olli Järvilehto from Relevant Digital. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.